people, welcome back to my channel. So I was like working all day and my hair was in one of those surgeon caps, so excuse me for this being a hot mess. But today we're going to dive in and talk about music therapy conference. Yes, because well, one of them is coming up. I only track two music therapy conferences. It's the MAR Mid-Atlantic region one and then the national conference. But the national one is coming up in November and they announced that it's going to be online. So we're going to go through and, you know, figure out how to pick sessions. Is it worth going? Like, what are some factors to think about before taking off from work? Because like, I don't know, in college, like we always went to the Mid-Atlantic region one, like with the music therapy club, and you know, you miss like 2 days of class, and as a music therapist, missing 2 days of class was like a horrible thing because like a lot happened in 2 days. I remember when I had to miss, I think like biology on a Thursday and then anatomy on a Friday. Oh my gosh, I was doing homework for like 24 hours straight just trying to catch up. But you know, the professors were fine with you missing class because it was for professional development. Whereas at work, believe it or not, bosses are not okay with you leaving work for professional development because as a music therapist, when you have sessions, that brings in revenue. You going to conference doesn't necessarily bring in revenue. So, and the thing is, I know I argue about like, oh, this is how we can be assets to the company. This is how we can improve ourselves. And going to conference is beneficial and it's definitely good for us as a music therapist, for our music therapy department. But I'm still trying to figure out how to explain it to the big guys because no matter what I try, I still get the whole, oh, going to conference doesn't bring in revenue response. So I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. But I guess the moral of the story here is that you need to pick and choose which conferences you go to. You can't go to one in November and then one in March. One company I worked with, they did approve conferences, but there was a catch. There was a limited budget of $300. And going to a music therapy conference definitely costs more than $300. So that's another thing to keep into consideration when you're a professional, that the whole thing isn't going to get paid for. You're lucky if your membership and the AMTA gets covered. You're lucky. But usually a lot of companies, they'll pay for, at bare minimum, they'll pay for the conference itself and maybe the registration fee, but they won't pay for the hotel, they won't pay for food, they won't pay for your membership. And that was a big shocker because in college, you know, at least we fundraise for the music therapy club, so that was all covered, you know. Anyway, but we're gonna figure out how to pick and choose which conference to go to. I think for me, on it, because I tracked the two different ones, it really depends on the location. So I remember one time the MAR conference was in Maryland, and it was in Ocean City, Maryland, and like, I can't go to Ocean City, Maryland. You know, it would literally take 10 hours to get to Ocean City, Maryland from where I am. And I can't necessarily carpool with anybody because, you know, everybody has different work schedules. Everybody would be leaving on different days. So, like, that's not necessarily feasible, right? But then the national conference this year is in Atlantic City. I think it's, yeah, Atlantic City, New Jersey. I'm pretty sure. Let me look it up. Not that it matters because it's online, but if we were going in person, yeah, they don't even say. Oh, it was originally scheduled to be in Atlantic City. Okay. Atlantic City's still pretty darn far, but I think it's like 3 hours, and plus like my parents don't live too far, so I could always stay at their house or getting a hotel in Atlantic City. You know, that's not necessarily too difficult, especially in November, whereas getting a hotel in Ocean City, Maryland, spring break, because in March, April, that might be a little bit more difficult. So that's kind of how I look at it first as location wise. I actually don't look at price because usually it ends up being the same amount. I know it's like, that's weird because a lot of people are like, isn't national conference more expensive? Well, it is, but then if you get money from the company, you end up putting in about the same. If money is an issue, let's say you're not getting money from the company, location again still matters, because if you're spending $300 for the MAR conference and $600 for the national, well, the MAR conference might end up costing $600, especially if it's located 10 hours away, right? So I always look at location first, then price, then I give it to my boss and do whatever you have to do for the company that you're in and see if it gets approved and get the days off. And usually they'll approve 1, maybe 2 days off. They don't approve the whole conference, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, this is what really matters. Who is presenting? Because that's what's going to determine what day you go if you can only choose one day. So I pulled up the schedule. We're gonna go through it together, and I have some advice, and this is what I follow when I pick presentations, not just at the music therapy conference but at other conferences too, because I've been to a decent amount. It's really good. It's a really good networking experience, and that's something we're gonna dive into later in the video, just a little bit. Okay. So, my high school choir teacher and I did not get along personally. However, she gave really good advice. And one type thing, I don't know what to call it, idea, I guess, personal opinion of advice that she gave was that she only goes to presentations where the presenter is known. And, it took I don't know, maybe she told us this as a class. She didn't tell me personally because I don't really think she liked me. But she told me maybe I was like 16, and I didn't really hit until I was 19 and going to conference. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do when we dive in. And I suggest, because that actually is great advice, because there's a few sessions on here, that they sound good. I don't know, self-care as a music therapist. But then it's by somebody that's not well known, and then they end up talking about meditation, and it's yeah, meditation, self-care, but meditation doesn't work for everybody. So it's important to figure out who's giving the presentation, who the researcher is, and then that's the conference or the session that you go to. So first we have, let's see, this conference is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So it does go to Sunday too. Oh, that's right, because it's online. Usually it's not that long. Okay, so first one here, they have these add-on courses, and I guess we'll choose one for the sake of the video. So a Thursday add-on course. We have Neuro Tune-Up. We have Market Budgeting and Rates. Oh, that's... I'm sorry. Your Way, My Way, and the Truth, Theoretical Orientation and Bias in Our Profession. And Learning, Teaching, Supervising Verbal Use in Music Therapy. Latest and Greatest Music and Neuroscience Research. How to Navigate the World of Dementia. Okay, so those are all the add-on courses for Thursday, November 19th. It doesn't, 10 a.m. to 1. That's a pretty, I don't do well sitting for that long. That's why I have a standing desk. So this is online, so I don't have to sit through it. But in a real conference, I do sit in the back because I can't sit for that long. I'm an active person. But anyway, looking at these courses, and I'm just at the top here of the guide. I'm just at the top. Looking at these courses, one that interests me just by the title, right, is Latest and Greatest Music and Neuroscience Research. And this is where it gets you. I'm not saying that this course might not be good. You know, I didn't even read the description, but like that was a title that stuck out to me. But here's the catch. You need to figure out who the presenter is. And this presenter, I've never heard of before, and that's something, not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that she has her PhD, so what you should do, what I'm going to do, is look up this individual on LinkedIn. And I'm not going to do it on the video because like maybe she doesn't want me to do that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that this title really intrigued me. The presenter, she's not board certified music therapist. She has her PhD. Not a bad thing, but I want to see what she's all about. So then I'd go on LinkedIn and I'd check out what her research is in. Where did she get her PhD from? You know, what was her senior thesis? And then figure out like, okay, like let's say, because I'm not really sure just by looking at the description and looking at the title and looking at the presenter, I don't know if this individual, maybe she has her bachelor's degree in music therapy and she went off to get her PhD in neuroscience. You know, I don't know that. So that's why it's always good to check on LinkedIn. And if you feel spontaneous, connect with that person. So I'm going to go through a couple more with you guys, just so that way, because this is a really popular one that ends up coming up multiple times. This is an add-on course. It says Growing with the 2019 AMTA Code of Ethics. And they always do like an ethics presentation at conference. So again, that's why I want to point this one out, because ethics is really important. Ethics is important in all disciplines, not just music therapy. But if we look, there's a lot of people involved in this presentation. So for this specific presentation, because there's a lot of individuals that apparently, I don't know if they're all presenting, maybe they all worked on the project, but it is important to definitely look them all up. Maybe they did an internship together, you know, and that's why they're working on this together. Maybe they work for the AMTA, you know, or maybe some of them work for the AMTA. But it is important to figure out like who each individual is and what their background is, presenter-wise, before jumping into a session just based on the name or the description. So let's go through one more and we'll talk about the description, because I didn't read any descriptions yet. I'm trying to think what's a good one. I guess I'll pick like a music one, because I always like to go to the like learn how to play drums one. There's a decent amount of neurological sessions on here, which like really intrigues me. And there's one I do want to go through with you guys. But let me see if there's any. Here we go. Using online tools for telemedicine, teleteaching, and virtual drum classes. So, now I'll read the description. So it says, during these times, many live events and clinical sessions have been canceled. Learn 4 steps to leading online programs, from telemedicine to online drum circle facilitation. Learn recommendation tools for enhancing audio, video, screen sharing. Learn the basics of being online Zoom host and facilitator. Practice the 4 keys to maintaining your online presence. Discover how to make a video invite. Outline an online session, title, protocol, and receive feedback. So this is like really speaking my language, because, well, if we just think from YouTube, I do not know how to enhance my audio. And my best headphones ever I use when I was recording my podcast for the Music Therapy Chronicles. And I'm going to transition here. This video is not sponsored. I am actually calling out the Music Therapy Chronicles for being so great, because this is a podcast that actually actually embraces being involved in a conference, and it is free. So I have it pulled up here, of course, and there's lots of different episodes. You can see I downloaded the one that I'm on. But I did download a lot of these episodes, and it's very cool, and you learn about music therapists that are in your area or working at certain hospitals or doing certain things some music therapists work in hospitals, some do independent sessions, some work in hospice, and it's really cool, and it's a very chill type of background, but the whole conference is based on conference. It's based on bringing a music therapy conference to our phones and to our cars, and I think that that's really cool. And Trisha, the host, she's great. She's really easy to talk to, very chill, and she made me feel comfortable. But yes, moving back, check out the podcast, subscribe, download the episodes. What happened? I lost it. But anyway, you guys know the drill. Comment down below, subscribe, leave your feedback. I think I definitely left mine. I always leave feedback when it comes to podcasts because people need to know if they're doing a good job, and she's definitely doing a good job. So I'll leave her link to the podcast and all that stuff down below. But moving back to conference. So, telemedicine, teleteaching, virtual drum circles. Yes, I used the best headphones microphone that I have. It's actually Apple, and that didn't work out that well. So I definitely need to know all of these things, especially the 4 keys to maintaining your online presence. Now, this individual, this is really interesting. They have an MSW, which is a Master's in Social Work, an MA, which might be a Master's in Music Therapy, because sometimes it's sometimes it's a Master's of Arts, sometimes it's a Master's of Music, sometimes it's a Master's of Science. So, and then they're board certified. So, yes, it seems pretty darn good considering, this person, just looking at the title, looking at the initials, they're board certified. I'm not sure if they have their master's in music therapy, but we can assume that they have a degree in music therapy, and then social work, so they know how to do the clinical and the psychological orientation, especially through online presence. And I think that that's really hard because you, as a music therapist, we break that fourth wall, and it's difficult to do that, especially if you're not comfortable in front of the camera or it's the first time, and sometimes keeping a client's attention is really hard. So, last but certainly not least, I'm going to go through a session here with you guys. Where was the one that I was I'm definitely going to talk to you guys about this one. Here we go. Music therapy and neurodegenerative disorders. It's very interesting. I thought that there was going to be a big, there is, don't get me wrong, but I thought there was going to be a big need for neurological disorder treatment, and there isn't here where I live. And I think it's because there's a lot of young families and people who are younger, or people who are healthy 70s, if you know what I mean. But there's a lot of research labs that deal with neurodegenerative disorders. There's just not that many sites that specify in it, especially in this area, and I thought that that was kind of interesting. So keep that in mind if you're going into any older population, any younger population, any adolescents. Check out the town and see. Clearly we can tell this is a young town because people drive crazy. But anyway, so this one actually talks about patients with neurodegenerative disorders and how music therapy can be the glue that brings the pieces together. Yes, for sure. You look at assessments, goals, engagement, interventions, families and caretakers. Now this has a decent amount of individuals like doing this session, and this is another pretty darn good one, even though the title intrigued me. This individual, one of them has their PhD, LPMT, MTBC. So again, I would probably look up this person on LinkedIn because I want to know what they have their PhD in. But they are board certified, so we can assume that they did go to for music therapy at one time. Another person has their master's in music, so again, master's in music therapy, MTBC, and then the last person has a master's of arts, which maybe is a master's in music therapy, and then MTBC. So that's how I go through choosing which conferences, which sessions I go to, is I look up the individual or the presenters giving the presentation. I do go on LinkedIn to check them out. Some older professionals don't have LinkedIn accounts, so in that regard, like if they're a physician or if they're a teacher or if they work at a university, then if it doesn't work on LinkedIn, then I Google their name. And usually if they work at an institution, if they work at a facility, if they started a program, if they're a physician, then their name pops up in whatever site that they're working in. It happens to me, I'll be honest. Like places that I used to work in the past will come up if you Google my name. Anyway, but that's what I do, and I think my choir director hit the nail on the head when she said you look at the people who are giving the presentation, you don't look at the title or the description. And I think that that's the best way to get the most bang for your buck and to learn what you need to learn from these particular sessions and conferences. Because, I mean, every year they have a playing one. Every year they have, like, pass your board certification. Every year they have an internship one. But, like, what one is really going to appeal to you at this time? Because maybe last year the internship one appealed to you, but this year, you know, it might be something else. So that's something to keep in mind. And then I said that I would talk about networking pretty darn briefly because this is an online session, and that was one of my favorite parts about networking at conference was, you know, you interact with people, you meet people, you see people. I'm not very good at networking because I'm shy. So, but what you can do because it's online, you can follow these individuals on LinkedIn. Like, we're already looking them up on LinkedIn, okay? So, like, you might as well just click connect. And then it comes up with a note. Sometimes, depending on the individual, you want to put down why you're connecting with them. So, if you're going to a session at conference by this presenter, you can say, oh, I am interested in attending your presentation at the AMTA National Conference. I want to connect to learn more about your research or to learn more about your experience. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, actually, it's very flattering when people want to learn about you. And when you network, you're not using people. I think that gets confused a lot of times. When you network with professionals, you're not using them to get a job. You're not using them so that way you can, like, I don't know, get a front seat at the conference. Like, you're actually using them to learn something, and then hopefully you can give them something to learn as well, especially if you're on the younger side and maybe you're thinking about getting a PhD. Well, one of the presenters could be your mentor and guide you, and then maybe you can help them in another way. Help them with research, you know what I mean? So that's the thing is mentoring, networking, it's a two-way street. There has to be a give and a take, and nobody is abusing or using anybody. I want to put that out there because there were times when I would try to network and I felt that I was coming across as a user and I wasn't, or some people think of networking as using. So it's important to know that it's a two-way street, and it's like you want to be able to give to the presenter, to the mentor, to the networker, and they are going to give to you. So that's a little spiel. Again, if they don't have a LinkedIn account, because some older professionals do not, you can always email them, and you could probably find their information either online or after conference. It would probably be appropriate to email after conference, after they've given you the information, because you don't want to just be like, hey, I looked up your email. But anyway, I look up people, I'll be honest, because like I want to learn from you, and I want to know that you're coming from the same place that I'm coming from. I want to know what your background is if I'm going to pay for a session. And so I think that that's appropriate. Employers do it, so you should do it too. It's just make sure that you know, like, don't call their personal cell phone, like don't email them inappropriately, don't connect with them for bad or uncouth reasons. So that's my spiel. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out the Music Therapy Chronicles podcast. It's great. There's a lot of resources out there for music therapists now online. I love it. Anyway, have a great day, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.